Thank you for checking out Tea and a Buddy on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Welcome back to Tea and a Buddy. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
And we're going to be doing another school episode.
I hope you're not getting sick of these.
Yes, I hope you're thinking you're not going back to school with all of these and all of these great stories that both we have. We're going to talk about the middle school.
Yeah.
In this episode.
Which does not exist in Britain.
Well, it does apparently from what I've been reading up, but only in some areas of England.
So middle school just for...
But I've never heard of it, so...
So middle school just for anybody elsewhere in the world. Because I don't know where else they have it. Maybe in Canada.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe in Mexico. I don't really know. Middle school or junior high, because you can call it either one, I guess, depending really on where you are in the country, probably. Where you are in this country. Anyway, middle school is 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So from the time when you're 11 until you're 13 or 14. Yeah. It's like the in-betweeny years. Basically what they now call as your tween years.
It's also called junior high over here, isn't it?
Junior high, yeah.
Junior high school and then
that?
Senior high or just high school.
Middle school or junior high,
Middle school, junior high, yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, I probably was. I was just looking at this thing that's here that's kind of like detailing all what ages you are and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, middle school is the same thing as junior high, yeah.
And that's it. Goodbye.
The end. We've talked about
Yay!
it.
Yeah, because for me, year 6 is primary school. Well, for me it was anyway. I was in primary school when I left primary, and that was a big deal. It was like, oh, that's it. You know, you're going on to secondary school now. You're in the big leagues, boy.
Year 6 is still in primary school?
Yeah, it's still in primary school, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, and you had to do like your SATs or a grammar school entrance exam, which was often the 11 plus. I never took it. No, I never took it because I didn't get in. I think when we were tested for it, it was like you had to do like an exam to see whether you're eligible to take it, or you were given the option to take it. And I think I was like, yeah, I'm not going to get into grammar school, so I'm not going to bother taking it.
So our grammar schools, we talked about this in the primary school episode. It's basically the equivalent of like a magnet
like a selective,
school over here.
It's a selective school. Yeah.
But are they really like prevalent? Like, are there a lot of them?
I think there's quite a few of them.
Or in each town, is there just about like one?
There was it's usually my dad went to grammar school, and it was boys' grammar and girls' grammar, and I still think it's the same thing. I don't know if it's like integrated now or anything like that, you know, if boys and girls can go to a grammar school together, but I remember my dad went to a boys' grammar school,
but those were
and
the
my
only
aunt
two?
went to a girls' yeah, those were the only kind of two in that.
Right, because in Austin we have a magnet school, which in elementary school it's the same kind of thing, really. In elementary school it doesn't really exist. There's like, when I was in elementary school they had, I don't know actually if they did in elementary school or not. Gifted and talented is what they called it at the time, which is not very PC.
Yeah, I mean, grammar schools were pretty much the same sort of thing. It was very like,
but it was
selective.
Yeah, but to actually call it gifted and talented and like everybody else isn't, you know, it's like that's not very PC. But it wasn't a separate place. It was just like you were in a separate program and you had maybe some different classes, but there wasn't a separate place. But in middle school, you can get accepted into a magnet program, but the only one I know about is in Austin is Keeling Junior High School, and it's a magnet school, which is essentially, I think, like a grammar school. It's harder curriculum. The teachers are a little bit more qualified, like maybe they've had a bit more schooling than your average, like, regular school teacher. it's sort of more like college or university prep, like you're starting early. Is that similar to grammar school?
It's sort of the same thing. Yeah, I mean it's like a public school because I think you have to pay to go there.
A public school meaning private school in America.
It's like a private school. It's not a state funded school. I remember when doing the 11 plus. Well, I wasn't doing it, but I had a friend who thought, I'm going to grammar school. I'm going to do the 11 plus because if you failed it, you didn't get in. Mm-hmm. You couldn't go.
Right.
And he thought he was going. His parents too. They were all dead set he was going to do grammar school. He was on his way. He had good grades and everything. He had good marks and good results and everything. And he did it and he failed. There's
no tests that you have to take over here to get into the magnet school. It's just overall. Yeah. It's just overall. I don't think there's a test anyway. I went to a magnet high school. I didn't go to the magnet junior high because I didn't live here for part of the time in junior high. But
you don't have to pay. But there's to grammar school. I thought you did though. I think it was just kind of like people who have money go to grammar schools.
He's looking it up at the moment, by the way.
Because I think it's a state funded. It's comprehensive school is what I went to, and then there was grammar school for people who were more that kind of more bright.
Yeah.
More educationally minded, as we'd say.
But I don't think over here that there's a test that you have to take to get into a magnet school here. I think it's just they just look at your overall test scores from every time you had a test and your overall homework grades and your in-class grades and all of that, and they invite you. You get an invitation. So you get a little thing in the mail that says, we invite you to, come to our school and we'll, sit down and have a chat and tell you what we're all about and you can decide whether you want to come here or not. But you've been invited. You have to be invited. You can't just, I'm going to enroll in this school,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a selective school. But I always thought, because my dad went to one. I think my uncle went to one and,
So is grammar school then the same ages as secondary school, or is it a middle school?
It's the same age as a secondary school. Yeah, you go through to 16 till you're finished. Yeah.
Okay. So getting back to the idea of middle school, you were looking at before, and Britain did do a test period where they had
in the 60s and 70s. They did it, yeah, and then I think by 1980 it was kind of phased out because there was a report into it's we don't really need it. So anyone who is in middle school will have to go either be a secondary or a primary school, or, that's it. I think there's still some areas of England that do it, but I was never living in that area, so I never experienced it. So I always had primary or secondary,
I really think it's good to separate the ages, because by the time you're 13, you're really too old to still be going to school with 5 and 6 year olds. You don't, 5 and 6 year olds don't need to have that sort of, you're already your hormones are raging, you're hitting puberty, you're maybe getting in fights and you're more interested in girls. And I think there does need to be that separation. When you're that age, you don't, there should be a separation. And the same thing being said with 18-year-olds really shouldn't be going to school with 11-year-olds in my opinion. It's the 11-year-olds are still kids and they don't need to I'm really making myself sound a bit prudish or I don't know, closed-minded or something, but in my mind kids should be able to be kids for as long as possible. And when you're exposed to older kids, you sort of you look up to them because, they're older, they're cooler, they're more like a grown up, you already want to grow up as soon as possible when you're a kid. I don't think you should be exposed to the older kids, if at all possible, just to maintain your innocence and your childhood a little bit longer. in my opinion. I don't know if that's the reason why we have middle school over here or not, but it seems to make sense to me not to put 11-year-olds in the same school as 17 and 18-year-old kids, you know? So I think starting off high school with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you know, okay. It's a little bit closer than like 11 and 12-year-olds being in with 17 and 18-year-olds, you know? So I think maybe that's why middle school exists here. I don't know.
The ages being separate, I mean, I don't really have much of an opinion on it. I think I was fine going to school with like 16-year-olds when I was 11, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we were kind of separated anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of, really. Yeah. I remember there was this, we were in year 11. We had all made it to year 11 and we were in the canteen once. And this kid who was new, he came running and he tripped and he fell and he whacked his face. And blood started streaming out of everywhere. Mm-hmm. Like that, and he was crying his eyes out. It was like first or second day at school or whatever, you know, first day at, you know. And I remember this kid, you know, the teacher's coming running, okay, yes, we'll get the first aid, like he was just like, you know, being led off. And I remember just like, this mate, when we were just sitting there, just like, there you are, welcome to Bringwin, you know. It's just like, you know, just welcome to Bringwin, you know. It's just like, kind of like, not in like a nasty way, just like, oh God, there you are, welcome to Bringwin. You know, you've got a long road ahead of you of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny, and it stayed with me all these years, you know, because it's just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of how it was, you know. It's like, I don't remember being like picked on or anything like that by older kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the occasional, like, someone would throw a freaking tub of water over the thing and it would be like, oh, it's in year 11 again, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just that kind of thing. It was just, I don't know if it's like made a difference over here or...
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know when...
Maybe it didn't make a difference. Maybe it made a bad difference for me, you know?
I don't know when there started being middle school, because obviously at some point, if you go back far enough, in little schoolhouses all over the country, there was kids of all ages in there, wasn't it? Like from really super little to much older, and they were all
if you go back
kinda,
in the ages, yeah,
and they were all kind of learning the same thing together, you know. So I don't know what made someone go, you know what? At age 11, they need to be in a separate school now from like 5-year-olds or whatever.
What I always, you know, like on the subject, I mean, I'm getting into a little bit of this kind of mindset, how I always thought of it was like, when I reached like year 11, I was always like, oh, you know, like year 9, you know, like there was like boys in my class who were like fancying girls who were in year 9 or year 10.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, they're young. You know, they're younger than us. You know, it's like that's a bit weird. You know, it's just like, you know, just like, oh, this girl. I was like, I don't know who she is. She's not in our year.
Yeah. So
who is she? Oh, she's in year 9. I'm like, why are you bothering with them? That's year 9. That's a whole different. That's 2 years ago. You know, to me. So it was just kind of like he's wanting to date year 9 girls. Or,
well, I think this is a whole topic for a high school discussion.
It's a high school discussion, yeah. It was just like, but yeah, we'll get into that and so. But I thought I always had that kind of like mentality. It was like, stay within your year.
Leave the younger kids.
Stay in your lane.
Leave the younger kids alone.
Leave the younger kids alone.
Yeah, I mean,
They don't know. They'll have it coming.
I mean, yeah, they do separate the grades in the school, especially if you go to a big school where there's a lot of students. That I can remember, like, this is the 6th grade hall, or the 6th graders are upstairs and they're kept totally separate from the 7th and 8th graders, you know. I can kind of remember seeing that too. Like, the 6th graders looked really a lot younger, I thought, than us 7th and 8th graders. Like, oh, they look like little kids. Like, why would anybody...
And it was only like 5 years ago, really. I mean, you know, it was only 5 years you stay in that. Well,
no, middle school, it's literally...
Oh, well, yeah, well, for you...
6th grade, you start at age 11. So in 6th grade, you're either 11 or 12. And then 7th, 12, 13, 8th, 13, 14. You know? My birthday's in the summer, so I was always the year that I The year that I started school I was the same age when I left.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, because,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like you're 13 in 8th grade.
That would be weird for me doing that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go through it, I guess. But it was just year 6, and it was like, okay, on to secondary school now. And it was like you changed the school. It wasn't. There are some schools in Britain, and I don't know if there's some schools over here that offer it. You stay in the same school all your school life. You go there when you're 4 for like kindergarten.
Really?
Yeah, and you stay there until you're 16 and leave. But they're all through schools, they're called.
That must be like either it's a really huge school or you're in a really small town and there's just not that many kids.
I'm not sure, but I've read of and I've heard of that before. Like they've stayed in the same school all their life. You know, what school did you go to? You know, it's just like, I don't know, Packham School. It's like, yeah, but what secondary school? It's like Packham School. You know, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I'm just making that name up.
Yeah.
But it's just like, for me, it would be like, oh, I went to several. I went to Cockington was my main one. I went to that twice when I was a kid in my primary school life. But the main one for me was I went to Torquay Community College when I was starting my secondary education, but I only went there for like a year. And then I moved to Bringwyn, and then I was in Bringwyn for the rest of my school life. So that was my major school.
Yeah.
And I was still a new boy, even though I joined in like year 8, maybe the end of year 7, something like that. I was still a new boy even when I was like in year 11, you know. It's like, I'm new here, you know. I don't know how this works, you know.
So the main difference from elementary school to middle school is that in elementary school you don't really change classes. I'm just totally changing the subject here.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
I don't know, in primary school in Britain, I don't know if did you change classes, or were you just like with one teacher most of the day except for like say PE and whatever?
We were with one teacher most of the day.
Yeah.
I remember Miss Hunt, Mrs. Douglas, Mrs. Butler, I remember. And, you know, we were just in their class for most of the day.
So then when you changed to
Mrs. Thompson.
So then when you changed to secondary school for like year 6.
It would be like
it
was a rotation of teachers for the day.
Right.
It was like you had maths with Mr. Jenkins. You had you had science with Mr. McDowell.
Right.
You had geography with Willie Jog. You know, it's like, I don't know if you had nicknames for your teachers.
No.
Oh, we had a plethora of nicknames.
Britain's very like into nicknames.
It was nicknames all the time. It was
we would just call them by their last name, really.
I mean, yeah, when we talk about high school, I'll go more into depth with that because, you know, I can't remember how, you know, it was like how I learned who was who, you know, because I guess it was just like, oh, I've got maths with whoever, you know, it was just that kind of thing. All up, and our registration teacher was the same all the time, I think. Wait a minute, it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. When I was in year 7, it was a different woman, and then I think she left. I think she left the school, so we had a different one come in. And yeah, it was the same throughout like the year, you know. But you know, we had a rotation of like teachers who would teach us. Yeah. Maths, science, history.
So, but you guys,
music.
So then, did you have lockers if you had to change classes?
I got detailed. Funnily enough, you should say that. I just remember this now. I got detailed in high school to be like, on like a school committee. I don't know why. I wasn't a prefect or anything, so I don't know why I was on this. But I remember everybody going, ask for lockers, you know, for like, oh, what you've been put forth as your representative in the school parliament, say.
Oh, right.
It was like a school.
You were a class representative. That's what we call them over here.
I was kind of like a class representative for all of like a year, and I remember I had to sit around with like other class representatives and put thought to like a teacher. I seem to remember there was a teacher there who was taking down our ideas and stuff. And I remember they were all like, Dom, you've got to get us lockers. You've got to get us lockers. Say we want lockers. We want lockers, okay? Lockers. Everybody wanted them. And I was like, okay, I'll say it. Went in there, lockers. It was like, nah, we're not doing that. Not doing that.
They want lockers. They really want lockers. Nah, okay.
It was his name was, I can't remember. He had a hyphenated Welsh name. Like Wyn Jones or something like it was always like something Jones, you know, Wyn Jones or something Jones, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember him saying, he was like, they've been watching too many American movies you have. We're not getting those lockers. You know, not getting those lockers, no. You can go tell him. I had to go back and tell him. They were like, what? What's the point in that then? Why are they asking us if they're not going to do it? And I was like, yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? This system, eh? You know?
So what did you have to carry all of your
in a backpack?
All of your books? Did you not have very many, or did you have a load? And it was just
they were kind of lightweight, as I remember. But you know, usually what we do is we'd leave them in the class. At lunch, like at lunchtime, it was like if you're going to have maths at lunchtime.
How could you leave it?
Can I leave my bag here? And they'd go, okay, yeah, you can, or no, you can't. You know.
Yeah. I mean, because we changed classes, so we couldn't leave them in the class because the
registration. Yeah, I'm remembering this now. You'd have to have registration after lunch, and sometimes you were able to leave your bag, but you know, like, and that would be the way they'd tell if you were ever coming back. You know, it's like, oh no, I'm going to take my bag. I'm going to be all right, you know, because I'm not going back to school because I'm mitching, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd be like, oh, if you don't leave your bag, but sometimes I'd leave my bag because I'd want to go back to school, you know. Sometimes I'd be like, yeah. I enjoy this school lark a bit, you know. I enjoy this learning experience, you know.
No, we couldn't leave our...
But sometimes they'd say, no, you're not leaving your bags here because
they'd have... class is coming in. We couldn't leave our backpack in the class because the next class would be coming in after.
the next class would be you.
Oh, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying going class to class.
Oh, no, class to class. Yeah, you'd have your bag and stuff. I'm talking about like... If it was like lunchtime, the bell rang for lunchtime, you'd go to your next class and you'd say, can I leave my bag here since...
Because I'm going to come here after lunch.
But usually it'd be like registration, yeah, but, you know...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but no, between classes it would be like, you know, you'd only have like a couple of minutes and you just have your bag on your shoulder. We just carry them around.
Oh, no. I mean,
sometimes we would say to someone who'd still have their bag at lunchtime, they'd be like, oh, you know, didn't you leave your bag at school or whatever, you know, in the registration. But sometimes, you know, if you go back to registration, you'd be like, can I leave my bag here? Yeah. And they'd be like, nah, because, you know, they didn't want the responsibility of it. But somebody would be like, yeah, that's fine, you know.
Yeah.
Because it would be oh, they're coming back for it, so that must mean they're going to stay for the lesson. You know?
Yeah, no. We would just... Oh, God, I would die if I had to carry all my books around.
I can't remember how... I mean, it was probably heavy, I guess.
What about jackets and all of that? If you didn't want to... You would wear a jacket.
We'd leave our jackets or we'd stuff them in our bag.
Oh, God.
But usually you'd have a jacket on because it was bloody cold outside, you know, and...
Yeah, but you're in the school when you're changing classes
in the
and
school,
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have your jacket.
I mean, because we had we had some...
Sometimes you'd have, like, jackets up on a rack. I remember in primary school, you'd come in and they'd say, okay, go and put it in the cloakroom.
Yeah.
And the cloakroom was like a row, like a square room, and you could hang your bag. Oh, yeah, you could hang your bag up there, too, you know, when you were off doing play school.
Yeah, I mean elementary school because you're in the same classroom. But I'm talking about in middle school now when you're changing classroom to classroom and you're inside the building and it's just like you don't want to have your coat on or whatever.
It's so long ago for me to realize, you know, it's like. But I do remember leaving my bag. Or just hawking it around. You just hawked it around, just took it off your shoulder whenever you...
Or if you had an umbrella or something. Yeah, it's so nice.
Nobody carried an umbrella in school. It was only the good... This is the thing. See, the boys never thought through, even though it rained like every 5 minutes every day, you know, for Britain, it'd be like, we never thought it through. You know, we'd have a jacket maybe with a hood, but we never carry an umbrella. That was what the girls did.
I don't think we had lockers in elementary school, but we definitely had them in middle school, and that was like when you felt like, oh yeah, I'm a teenager now. I'm a grown up. I'm a big kid. Yeah, I've got a locker.
Yeah,
I
never had a locker. I tried valiantly.
I can put my jacket in there. I can put all my books, you know, and I'll come back to my locker and get my book for my next class or whatever, you know. Sometimes I remember, because we only had a few minutes in between classes. So I remember I would have to get like the book for the next class too, because it was like, oh, I'm going to have to go all the way across, or it's like around a way, you know, or I'm way down here and my locker's way at the other end and I'm not going to have time. Plus I've got to go to the bathroom or whatever. So it was like, you would go ahead and get that book also, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know how you survive without lockers. It's so nice. And you could decorate. I remember some people would have a mirror in there, like a magnetic mirror.
That's you're watching too many American movies. We're not going to have those lockers.
It's really nice.
No,
though.
We don't have the money for those lockers.
But
who's going to pay for it?
But apparently, with some of the school shootings, unfortunately, over here,
couldn't have them anymore.
Well, I always had a locker my whole school life, but I guess they don't really do lockers a lot now, so kids do have to carry their backpack from class to class. I can see that that's nice too, because sometimes you might have forgotten.
Is it just a high school thing?
No, I think it's middle school and high school. Yeah, no, they don't have lockers because they have the same teacher all day. So
I guess.
Yeah, in elementary school you have the same teacher all day, so there's not really a reason to have a locker. I think you have like a cubby, what they call a cubby space, you know, where you can put your coat and your backpack and whatever away in the classroom. But
it was like a cloakroom for us.
But it's nice to have lockers, but I can also see that it would be nice to carry your backpack around, because then you have all this stuff. If you forgot, if you don't have that thing like, oh, I left my notebook in my locker or whatever. It's like, no, it's all right here.
Like, I remember there would be a couple of people who would be like, sit down or whatever at the thing, and they'd leave their bag, they'd take their bag off, and then they'd get up and go, and then they'd be like, oh, my bag, you know, like, oh, I left my bag in the cafeteria or the cafeteria, or something like that, you know, I just walked out with it. And yeah, I remember several instances of that, and it would just be like, yeah, they're just trying to get out of going to class, you know, or trying to get out of the class to go get it, because, you know, I remember it would be a couple of kids who would say that, and they'd take forever to go get it, even though it was only down the corridor, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually we were just carrying our bags around all the time. Yeah. You know, that's what we were doing.
The other main thing I can remember, the main difference from elementary school to middle school, is that in addition to changing classes, so you had a separate teacher for each subject, we had electives, which we're going to talk about in a separate podcast, I think.
Like prefects, were they?
No. No, well, we called them electives. They were like, you had your own choice of class. So like I often took choir. It was like a non-educational type class that are like sort of fun classes. So things that you're interested in.
Yeah, we had that kind of like a choice. And that was at the very end of school, as I remember. That was like a year 10. Year 10 or 11. Yeah, I seem to remember that.
So how many classes did you take? Like, let's say if you can remember, let's say when you're in year 6, 7, 8, because those are the middle school years.
Well, in year 6, I seem to remember it was just all day in the same kind of classroom. So,
okay. Well,
year 7, it was like English, maths,
because we would have
science and history,
English, math,
and geography,
science, history,
English, maths, science,
PE.
History, geography, PE.
A language. We had to take a language.
Oh, I think we took French. Oh, there was Welsh too. That was compulsory.
So a language,
so
technically.
Around 7 or 8 classes.
Yeah, right.
7 or 8.
And you didn't have none of those were like a fun kind of class that you got to choose to take.
No, not when we were 11. No.
Oh.
So it was just like everything was compulsory up until year 9, I think, and then year 10 you could swap out. You could say, okay, what do you want to take? Music or drama or art? And I think I chose music and art. I think it was 2 things you could choose.
Yeah, so over here you could take art, you could take journalism. That was like a separate class.
You could take that.
You could take choir. You could take a sport as a class.
Yeah, I mean, you could
that would be in addition to PE also.
Yeah.
Or maybe you could get your PE credit through.
You could drop lessons. I think I dropped.
And just have like a free
I
period?
dropped history.
Oh no, you couldn't do that in middle school. You could
drop history in favor of this new thing that you could take, you know.
Oh, what? You could like drop history?
It was kind of like you could pick and choose what lessons you wanted to do, because I think we did art as well.
See, this is this is a difficult discussion to have since you guys don't have middle school. Yeah, we couldn't drop things in middle school. I'm just talking about the middle school year.
For like year 10 and year 11. I know I didn't.
Okay, you're talking about the high school years, though.
Yeah,
we could drop things in high school. Yeah, you didn't have to continue on with things once you got a certain amount of credits.
But no, we couldn't. No, everything was compulsory in those years for us.
But in middle, okay, so you didn't have any kind of electives. That's what we call them over here, electives.
Yeah.
That was a fun part of middle school. Other than that, middle school is just like, it's the in-between years. It's the awkward years. It's like the years that you think you're really cool and you're not, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
You think you're big stuff, you know, because you're not in elementary school anymore. But what you don't realize is you've still got high school after that, so you're not big stuff. I remember a lot of fights, a lot of like middle school kids are just basically have a reputation for being punks over here.
Punk suckers.
They're just punks. Like if you're a teacher, it's just like, oh God, I don't want to teach middle school kids because they're having sort of like an identity crisis. They're going through puberty, you know. It's it's not really great years.
Yeah. I mean, I remember. I don't really remember much from my year 7 to year 9 years, you know.
But if you can remember your middle school years, let us know what you can remember from middle school or junior high. Yeah, like things that you liked about junior high or things that you can really remember standing out about that period in your school education.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Britain or elsewhere in the world. I mean, we do have some listeners, I think, that are not in Britain or America. So let us know if you have middle school where you are, if you understand what I'm talking about when I say middle school or junior high. Maybe America's not the only one that has that. I don't know. So let us know. Let us know just how your school, your education system is set up, like what years you are in whatever kind of school or when you leave. Yeah. When you leave elementary or what happens or, you know, whatever. When we want to know.
We want to know all about it.
I'm genuinely interested in this kind of stuff and how it works elsewhere in the world. So, yeah, definitely let us know those things. And other than that, I think we're done here.
I think we're done with school. I think I'm leaving school right now. Middle school or whatever, you know.
I think next time we're going to talk about school electives, which I've mentioned several times here. I keep saying the word electives. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Talk about prefects, maybe.
Yeah. Do all the things. Like us, share us, give us a rating if you're listening on iTunes or wherever. Spotify, I think maybe you can give us a rating too. Or you can also leave a review or a rating on Facebook, on our Facebook page too. So we do have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. We're deciding whether we're going to continue on having both of those.
Yeah.
Let us know that also what your opinion is on that. Do you use Facebook? Should we just have the group? Should we just have the page? I think we like having the group where people can talk to each other.
And we can talk to you on there, yeah.
Yeah. So, but is the page necessary? Should we keep the page or should we just have the group? Yeah. Anyway, I'm just rambling now. So I think it's time to go.
The school bell is ringing.
The school bells are rung. We're late.
We're late.
Bye.
Goodbye.